He is Pat Forde. Pat, always good to have you on. Pat, how are you?
Hey, doing well, Jim. Happy Championship Monday to you.
Happy Natty Championship Monday to you, Pat. Appreciate it. So before we break down tonight's game, Pat, can you go back to Saturday for a few moments? San Diego State's Lamont Butler clearly hit an iconic and legendary shot to put the Aztecs in the title game tonight, but by definition, was it historic? In other words, had anyone ever hit a true buzzer beater in a Final Four game in the manner in which he did, Pat?
He did not. This was new. We have never seen one, a true buzzer beater. There's been 6 in the Final Four history. The other 5, the game was all tied. So you could miss that shot and the game was still going to go on. This one, it was true win or lose. And, he got it to go. Great individual effort on his part and hits the biggest shot in San Diego State history. And Aztecs are moving on.
They are. Pat Forde joining us. Pat, what about FAU? One thought on them. They had that 14-point lead. They appeared to be in control and headed to the national championship game only to have San Diego State do what they've done to others, and that's come back. As devastating as that defeat was to the Owls, how extraordinary was their run, Pat, and how much better did they make the entire tournament?
Yeah, I just think that they were such a great breath of fresh air. Nobody really knew anything about Florida Atlantic. But they'd had a great season, and they finished it up with a great tournament run. And, I think it's good to have new blood circulating at the top of the sport. And the way they played, I think, was really fun. They were fast and fearless and, just a great collection of guys that played well together. And so, I take my hats off to FAU for really giving us a great jolt of life in this tournament.
Agreed. Pat Forde joining us. Pat, UConn took care of Miami. They won their 5th consecutive tournament game by double digits. Before we talk about how dominant they've been, what's that say about the resurgence of the Big East Conference, which had 2 teams seated higher than UConn and a third in Creighton that came this close and also had a great look at the tournament as well, and they're going to add Rick Pitino to the conference?
Yeah, no, that league's on fire right now. Georgetown's going to get better, too, with Ed Cooley. So, I think that it's been a great season for the Big East, and there are better things still to come. Danny Hurley is at what, UConn should be considered a blue blood now. They're playing for a 5th national championship in the last 24 years. And so UConn's not going anywhere. Danny Hurley's not going anywhere. And then the rest of the league, Marquette, really good. Creighton, really good. And you go on down the line, Xavier, really good. So that league is going to be great to watch for several years to come now.
Pat, to that point, that UConn should be considered a blue blood. I mean, they're playing for their 5th national title. Their 5th tonight, all of which have come in the last quarter of a century. If they add another one tonight, I'm not looking by San Diego State, but if they add another one tonight, is it time to add them to the short list of truly elite programs, even in the sports history, or is it too soon for that if they win tonight? Where do you come out?
No, I think so. Jim. I think you put them right there, with the great ones. And, the true test of a college program's ability to sustain itself is, can you win with different coaches, or are you just a one-coach product? And that's not the case. They won obviously 3 with Jim Calhoun, but then they won 1 with Kevin Ollie, and now on the precipice of 1 with Dan Hurley, and he's 50 years old. He's going to be coaching there for probably quite some time, and I think this run is as good as anything, like Mike Krzyzewski, late 80s through 2015 is probably the only thing other than UCLA, of course, that we've seen that's better than what UConn has done in the last quarter century.
Pat Forde joining us, getting us ready for the national championship game. Pat, what about San Diego State? What is their best path, in your opinion, to pulling the shocker? What's their best path to victory against a UConn team that's been an absolute juggernaut throughout?
Yeah, they're going to have to hit some shots, which is not their strength. But if they can make 9 threes like they did this last game, then, hey, they're going to have a chance. They're going to just defend like crazy. They're going to rebound very well, but they're going to have to hit some shots, and then they would benefit from the officials, a loose whistle, so to speak, letting them play, because they are a super physical team and they want to beat you up defensively. If a bunch of fouls are getting called, that's not to their advantage. If few fouls are being called, they might have a shot.
So, Pat, in terms of the matchup itself, like if you're Brian Dutcher, how do you go about defending Adama Sanogo? Like if you play off him, he can knock down the three ball. He proved that. If you try to get up into him, he's going to attack the basket and get downhill. If you double him, he just finds the open man. I mean, what do you do to slow this guy down?
Yeah, I mean, he's got the whole package. And so pick your poison. If I were Dutcher, I would probably guard him with Nathan Mensah off the beginning, and he's a really good defensive player, moves his feet well, but also super long and tough. But I would probably back off and make him show that he can hit those threes again. I'd at least give him one open three, say, okay, let's see whether you can do it tonight. And if he does, okay, you're in trouble. But I would dare him to shoot that and then just try to close his pass to the basket and double him judiciously, because they do have shooters that he could pass to.
So, bottom line, Pat, who do you have tonight, and what do you think the game ultimately comes down to?
I've got UConn, and quite frankly, I have low expectations for this to be a great game. This, to me, reminds me a little bit of UConn 04 against Georgia Tech, or UConn 2011 against Butler, where they were just simply the better team, and their opponent maxed out in the semifinals just to get to the championship. So, if they can slow it down, if San Diego State can slow it down and make some shots, maybe that turns differently. But I just get the feeling that this could end up being a bit of a boat race.
I actually see it the exact same way. Pat, before you go, we talked about how unusual the tournament's been, how unusual the Final Four is. And by unusual, I mean, this is really cool, I think. It's been kind of an aberration, an anomaly. Should we expect to see more of this moving forward, given the parity and the changing landscape of the sport overall? Or are we never going to see something quite like this again?
Well, I don't know. We might. It's possible that that this is a one-off, but it's also possible. You can build a Florida Atlantic now in a lot of places. Now they didn't do it necessarily transfer portal heavy, but you go out, get some players, you fill in a few key gaps with the portal guys. You can scrape together some NIL money and keep some players from going to other programs. I mean, there's a lot of places that I think have a chance to have successful runs, and I think that's better for the sport.
Hey, Pat, last thought. You've covered everything that matters. You and I have talked sports for years and years and years. I've got to get your reaction. What do you make of the outrage and reaction to Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark and that entire thing, jumping the day, being a hot topic again today? You've been around a long, long time, Pat. What do you make of this whole thing?
Yeah, it's a very hot topic. I think that, look, that's basketball, right? Trash talk, and Caitlin Clark will talk a lot of trash herself, so giving it back to her, hey, that's part of the sport. And for people to get all wound up protective of Caitlin Clark in this situation, to me is almost patronizing and insulting. She's a baller. She can handle herself. She doesn't need people to say, you leave Caitlin Clark alone. So, that's part of basketball. Play, talk, fine, win.
I love it. I said the same thing. I made the exact same statement that you made. Not that good part at the very end, that it is actually patronizing to her. Somebody take care of her and defend her. She can handle herself. She's proven that more times over. Pat Forde is a senior writer for SI, co-host of the College Basketball Inquirer podcast, and all over the Final Four in the national championship game. Pat, always appreciate it. Thanks so much.
My pleasure, Jim. Thanks very much.
Have a great day, Pat. Thank you. Appreciate you. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and hit the bell to be the first to know when we do upload a new video.